Hi there. I'd like to talk to you about ducts, Dungeons and Dragons. So you know a little bit about Dungeons and Dragons and you think to yourself, that seems fun. You are correct, but no one you know runs D&D, and it started to dawn on you that maybe you're going to have to do it. Yeah, you're probably going to have to do it. So you go and you check out the 3 core rulebooks and you're like, holy crap, that seems like a lot of rules. Correct, it is. And you go online and you ask people how much of these rules you expected to actually know. And that's when you get discouraged, because inevitably somebody online is going to get a lot of upvotes when they tell you that you have to know all the rules. Especially, you will learn you have to know all the rules for how your players' abilities work. And I am here to tell you, everybody, Matt Colville here, I am here to tell you that is not true. You are not responsible for knowing how your players' stuff works. But that's not the same as saying you have no responsibility. You do have a responsibility, but your responsibility as a dungeon master is not to teach your players how their abilities work. Your responsibility is to onboard your players. I think the thing that players need to learn is how to translate the text that they see either in the player's handbook or on their character sheet into something actionable they can do in the game. And that is a muscle that they are going to have to work out over time. Eventually, they'll get to the point where they don't need to ask you. They are able to form an educated guess on how something, even something they've never seen before, will function in the game. The good news is this is actually a very easy and collaborative process. If a player asks you, how does this thing on my character sheet work? All you have to do is say, I don't know, read it out loud to me. The player reads their ability out loud, and then you describe to them how you think that would work in the game. And I'll tell you right now that you're not always going to come to the right conclusion on that. You may come to a very reasonable conclusion. Everybody at the table thinks, yeah, that makes sense. But then you go and you find out later on that actually your interpretation is a little off in one way or another. But in fact, it doesn't matter, because in the moment, everybody seemed to think that was reasonable and you kept playing. And that is our goal as a dungeon master, is to keep the flow, to be fair and keep the flow of the action and the game moving. It's a very simple tool, but it is a very powerful one, because it teaches the players how to start interpreting the rules themselves, rather than just asking you how something works and you explain it as though they have no information and you have all the information. You're making it collaborative. You're saying, I don't know, let's read it together and we'll figure it out together. And very quickly, I discovered, in only between 3 and 5 instances of this, the players will start being able to read a spell or read a class ability that they've never seen before and get pretty close to interpreting it the way you would. I think it's far more important for the dungeon master to be fair and transparent in their rulings and empower the players and keep the game moving than it is to try to interpret the rules exactly the same way the designers would have. The designers aren't at the table. They're not the ones behind the screens. They're not responsible for what happens. Ultimately, we are. This process of read your ability out loud to me and I will tell you how I think it works also teaches the players something very important, which is to have that ability, whether it's a spell or a feat or a magic item, in front of them and ready to be read. And you will discover, if you start doing this, that after only 1 or 2 instances, the player will have learned, oh, I better get this thing ready so I can read it to the DM and we can figure out how it works. And that means they start reading it. And as they start reading it, they figured out themselves. And now we're all playing better and smoother, and we're interrupting the flow of play a lot less. And the players become a lot more educated and a lot more empowered. The players, in other words, start learning the rules instead of depending on you. There are definitely things I think that you need to know in order to play D&D, but I think there are very few. I think the actual number of rules that you need to have memorized are incredibly few, and they get down to things like, what is a skill check exactly? How do you do the math to figure out what I'm rolling and what stats things are based on? I don't think, for instance, you need to know what all the skills are, but it's helpful to have a list of them handy so that anytime you need to refer to them, you can look and see which skills are available. For instance, the new Dungeon Master's Guide, which is the one I'm using in the Chain of Acheron campaign right now, is very handy in this sense. It lists, for instance, all the different things you can do in combat. So you don't need to have them memorized. You can just refer to your Dungeon Master screen. It has, for instance, all of the different conditions that you can suffer from and what they do, so that you don't have to have them memorized. You can just refer to them. It has a list of all the skills, so you don't have to remember every skill in the game and how they work and what stat they're associated with. You can just look at the list. When it comes to dungeon mastering, getting started is far more important than memorizing the rules. You're probably never going to have all the rules memorized, but you can get started right away. So if you go online and you ask, do I have to have all my players' abilities memorized before I can start dungeon mastering? You will find people who will say, yes, you do. Those people are going to get upvoted quite a lot. I'm here to tell you, I don't think they have your best interests at heart. In their mind, they have some abstract idea of the perfect game, and they're trying to prevent other people from failing to attain that ideal. But I'm telling you right now, that perfect game, the only perfect game is one where you and your friends have a blast, and you can do that tonight probably without a whole lot of preparation. So that's the lesson, folks. It's not about memorizing rules. It's about onboarding your players. It's about getting them to the point where they can read you their abilities so you can tell them how you think it will work and why. And then pretty quickly, they won't need to do that anymore. They'll be able to guess how it will work and make decisions based on that guess. The players will set themselves up so that their cool special ability will fire at an appropriate time without ever having told you that this is what they're planning on doing. And you might not even have known they had that ability, but they read the ability, they translated what it said into a tactic or a strategy they could use in the game, and then they deployed it, and you got to watch it all happen without them ever asking you anything. And all you had to do was say, read your ability out loud, and I will tell you how I think it works. That's it, folks. Short video, but an important one about the difference between memorizing rules and onboarding players. This is the new running the game set. It's probably going to be a little while before we get all the lighting and everything worked out, but I didn't want to wait for it to be perfect. I was eager to get this video recorded and uploaded. You probably already know that we have a second channel where we put all the Chain of Acheron stuff, the live streams. They're getting a lot of juice. I think we had an episode 1 or 2 episodes ago that I got over 50,000 views in like 3 days. That made me very happy. We had a fun guest star last night who was a big hit, and I had a lot of fun running for. We also have a podcast. There's a podcast version of the Chain of Acheron live stream. There'll be a link in the doobly-doo. This video, along with this office and my life, is brought to you by Strongholds and Followers. There's a link to our store. You can buy the PDF right now. The book is going to be shipping soon. We're going to start doing design diaries for Strongholds and Followers, where I show kind of behind the screens of the decisions we made when designing different bits and pieces of it, because I think that's going to be a lot of fun and something people have asked for. And even before we launched that Kickstarter, I had told everybody that there was going to be a second book called Kingdoms and Warfare that's also going to focus on organizations like Thieves Guilds and Wizards Orders and stuff like that we've already started doing some design and some art for. There'll be a Kickstarter for that. And if you want to be alerted when that Kickstarter goes live, there's a link to that in the description down below, and we will only use your email once to email you saying, hey, the Kickstarter is live. We will be doing more minis. We had a meeting about that with Dave from Trenchworks the other day. I hope you folks got a chance to see the making minis. Like, we had Dave, who owns or runs Trenchworks, the folks who make our miniatures, the dragon miniatures, came down here and we recorded a video where we birthed a dragon live, starting with just a couple of vials of goop and a couple of molds. And at the end of the process, we were pulling an actual dragon out of the mode. That was really exciting. Love doing that. And we're looking forward to working with Dave on more miniatures for the next Kickstarter. We put a hold on the campaign diaries for a little while, but I actually think I have an idea now for how to bring them back without overwhelming myself with the colossal amount of work it was taking. So stay tuned for that. Next episode, we will be players and we will do relentlessly awful things, but say, I was just playing my character. Until then, peace out.